gay rights liberation movement in the 70s is the exemplar of how to do social activism. So let me just kind of like deconstruct some of the things they did right, and then everyone here can kind of figure out what current activists are doing wrong. One, they had an amazing sense of humor. And I know this is hard when you are oppressed, but listen, if you were gay in 1969 and you were living in Oklahoma, you were not having a good experience, really anywhere in the United States. And yet, if you look at their protest signs that they had in the 1970s, it was they would walk around whatever the state capital was with signs that said, "We want to get divorced just like you. That's all we want." And they were very playful about this. And they were playful in terms of, we're not going to fill up your preschools and your grade schools because we can't have kids. And so these gay men would have these signs that they would kind of go around with at the time, because, and it was self-deprecating. And you could even see the video footage from the 1970s and see the warmth and smiles. They're not, full dead on laughter, but you could see that like they're warming the hearts of the people that disagree with them or standing around these protesters. And there's something, it's good to think about the emotional element of protesting. And you have your indignation down, that's easy. But to recognize that there's other emotions in the palette, and being able to exhibit warmth despite protesting oppressors is something worth considering that the gay rights liberation movement did. The other part with Dr. John Fryer was what the main activists were looking for was one single inroads in society as gay men and women. And that was, we want to remove homosexuality as being a psychiatric disorder, because that alone allows people to constantly have this automatic criticism that, of course, you're a problematic element in society. It says in the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual, you are an anathema. You are a disease. It says it right here. The number one first listed sexual disorder in the 1950s and 60s was homosexuality, ahead of necrophilia, ahead of pedophilia. It was the number one first listed thing. That was purposeful, because at the time, that was the most prevalent sexual condition, and it was the one that politicians were concerned with. So they were very strategic. Lesson for social activists. They weren't fighting for everything. Slow game. They spent years getting this. They contacted the most distinguished, prestigious psychiatrists to try to get inroads. And if we can get their vote, other people respect them so much, we'll get them. And then they went one step further. They said, you know what we have to do? We have to find a gay psychiatrist who will speak in public and say, I am one of you. I'm one of you. Again, going back to the in-group member test, I am a psychiatrist. You know me. And now I'm going to publicly out myself, self-sacrifice for the cause. And John Fryer was so scared to do this in 1972 at the American Psychiatric Association meeting in San Francisco that he wore a mask. He basically looked like Mike Myers from Halloween. And he didn't do any reveals, and none of the activists revealed who he was. Very different. Again, lesson for today's social activists. They're not looking for publicity on social media. They're not looking for media attention. They are fighting for the cause, and they are focused, very concentrated there. When John Fryer opened up his remarks at this 1972 American Psychiatric Association meeting, this is what he said, which is, again, a lesson for activists. I'm a psychiatrist, and I'm gay. And he said it slowly to let it sink in. Now, in 1972, that was a really big deal. And from there, he was able to say, so I know what it's like to be both, and I'm going to explain why this is not a pathology and this is not a disease that happened there. And then he talked about his accomplishments, his publications, the clients that he's treated successfully, and then he talked about what it was like being gay that happened there. And that's another lesson from the science of how to be persuasive. One of the ways on seemingly intractable issues to get people to change their positions, and change their positions doesn't mean it's flipping. It could just mean that now I move from 90% aversion towards gays to 60%. We have to, another lesson for social activists, you don't need the full switch. Look at it as a continuum of you want to decrease the strength of people's beliefs and the certainty of people's beliefs. And I think too many social activists right now want people to flip their positions. And it's just not how the mind works because we have so much social affiliations that are tied to our belief systems. And so lessons learned from deconstructing a really important movement.